I want to thank you very much for investing your time to watch this video. I want to challenge you today to keep your eye on the prize. Never been more important, I feel, than it is today. You know, there's a lot of seminars, sessions, teachings, courses on real estate. There's get-rich-quick schemes. There's rent-to-own programs. There's fix and flip. There's how to take advantage of foreclosures and distress sales. There's market opportunities. And some of them have merit, and some of them don't. But my seminar, the Money Machine Seminar, is different than all of those. And I don't want to say I'm right and they're wrong. They all have a place, and I have a place. But the goal and the perspective of one is maybe quite different than another. Our perspective isn't to increase your cash flow today. It isn't to cause you to get rich today. It isn't to increase your income today. Our goal is to have a wonderful retirement with lots of passive income. That's the goal. That's the prize. And I want to encourage you to keep your eye on the prize, because there's never been a time when the forces at work to derail that plan, if you like, than today. So what forces am I talking about? Well, first of all, there's the force to cash in your chips. You know, during the COVID era, we saw prices escalate beyond what anybody would have ever imagined. We saw prices go up $100,000 on average in 1 month, huge gains. And of course the market slipped, it slid back, and they've lost some of those gains. But if you take a look over time, over say the last 7 years, the average property is still double what it was worth 7 years ago. If you've owned a piece of rental property for a substantial length of time, not only has it gone up in value, but you've also seen an appreciation because you've paid down the mortgage. And so your equity has increased and increased and increased. And you may be tempted to say, gee, I'd like to convert that into cash. I'd like to sell, get my hands on the money. My question for you is, why? If you have that money, you're going to want to invest it somewhere, and there's no better place to invest it than real estate. It's already in real estate. If you don't invest it, you'll spend it. And then you'll have no money, and you'll have no property. So resist the temptation to cash in your chips, even though it seems like there's a lot of chips to be had. The other thing is you're going to say, well, the bubble has burst. You know, it was fun back in 2021. It was fun to watch my property go up in value. I'd talk to my realtor, or I'd read the news or the newspaper, and I would realize how much I was gaining while I was asleep. It was wonderful, but that's not happening anymore. In fact, I watched my property go down and down and down in value, and I realized it's bounced back a little bit since then. It gained some of the loss, but it hasn't gained it all. And it's really not gaining ground. Yeah, well, sure, we gained 10% so far this year, but we're nowhere near where we were at the peak. And you might say, you know, I missed my opportunity. I should have sold right at the peak. And I'm going to say, no, you shouldn't. And I'll explain that by keeping your mind on what the goal is. And we'll talk about that. And the fact of the matter is, though, and you need to understand, your goal is not net worth. Net worth is nice. It's nice to see the property going up in value, but if it's not going up in value, or if it's going down in value, it really doesn't impact you specifically. As long as the tenant is paying the rent and the rent is servicing the debt, nothing's changing. You know, go back to 2008 in the U.S. when they went through that terrible meltdown, and a lot of people lost their properties. Well, those were people who were speculating, were buying properties they couldn't afford and counting on spinning them before they had to close them. The person who had a property as a rental, and the rent was coming in and the mortgage was in place, it didn't have any impact. And it doesn't have any impact on you today. The market, for example, will bounce back. Back in 1990, that's one of the advantages of being older. You've gone through some of these things. In 1990, we hit a recession. In 1980, we hit a recession. I watched in 80 interest rates going cranked up and cranked up and cranked up to 21, 22%. I think they're going to go up to 7.5% now, and then they'll level out. But the government's doing the same thing. So we're going to see some impact on prices yet for a while, but it's going to bounce back. I bought a property in 1990, the peak of the market. A year later, I'd lost 15%, about the same we are right today. But now that same property, even after a slide, is still worth between 4 and 5 times what I paid for it. The market will come back. Count on it. So keep your eye on the prize. The prize is passive income on retirement. The prize is delayed down the line, but tremendous payoff, and the equity you have in your property by way of property appreciation doesn't come into it at all. Another thing that will derail you or get you off the whole scheme is a problem tenant. You're working away and working away, and you do your best to screen your tenant, but sooner or later, we all end up with a problem tenant. And I've addressed it before. I did a 4-part series on how to avoid the tenant from hell. And you go through these sometimes, and it's like a stone in your shoe. All you can think about is the ache from the stone in the shoe, and you want the pain to go away. Well, you don't throw away the shoe, you get rid of the stone. And that's the same thing here. Eventually, through the process, and it can be a painful, laborious process, you'll get rid of the tenant, you'll retain the property, life will go on, you get a good tenant, and you'll be glad you did. So you need to understand that and work through it. But then there's the other problem, and the other problem is delayed gratification. We're in it for the long haul. And sometimes that can be a problem because you have to save for a down payment. You have to manage tenants. You have to see every single dime of profit go to the bank, and then you've got the challenge of paying the tax on it. And after a while, you just get tired. And you feel, why am I doing this? Because it's not helping my cash flow today. Maybe I should be the speculator or the fix and flip or something else where I see some money right now. But that isn't the program. Keep your eye on the prize. One day you're going to retire with a very opulent lifestyle. You know, my aunt and uncle, or I had several aunts and uncles, years and years ago, used to be on a 100-acre farm. And back then you could operate a 100-acre farm. It was mixed farming. They had some dairy cows, they had some pigs, they had some chickens. And one day I was visiting them, and on top of the fridge was a plastic egg. I said, what's that all about? They said, well, every day we take the eggs out from under the hen. And if you keep doing that, the hens get discouraged and stop laying eggs. They figure, what's the use? So if we leave a plastic egg under them, they don't know the difference. They always figure they got this hope, and they keep laying eggs. Well, it's a little bit like that. On the process, the Money Machine program is property a year for 10 years, never amortize over more than 15 years, never sell. So 25 years, it might be before you see the whole thing come to fruition. So in the interim, you want to, every month, see how much you're gaining on your mortgage by paying down the principal. At the end of the year, do a net worth statement, see how much you're gaining, where your position is. Do all these things. They're kind of like plastic eggs. They're not something you can take to the bank and enjoy today, but they'll keep you going and keep you encouraged. And one day, you'll hit the point, well, first of all, you'll hit the point where it gets easier because 1, 2, 3, those properties start to get paid for. And one day they're all paid for, and you're going to say, hey, it was a rough road at some points, but I'm so glad I did it. And you will be too, but keep your eye on the prize. Thanks for joining me. Talk to you again next week.